It is week 2 in college football, and we got so much for you guys today because we are previewing this entire slate of games, giving you the betting odds and the games that I wouldn't touch, not even with your money. And there are some quarterback controversies, and it started at ACC Media Day. It started with a bunch of 5 stars in the transfer portal, and it didn't turn out the way that we thought it was going to turn out. And we got a new development in college football that you all are going to love, all are going to appreciate. And this is the Unafraid Show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about the show, and most importantly, get notifications about it because we're here every Saturday. And then we'll be back tomorrow afternoon to recap everything that happened. All right. So this weekend is the actual first weekend of college football. We got games Thursday. We got games yesterday. We got games today, tomorrow, and then even on Monday. So this is the kickoff of college football, and this is what we have been waiting for, people. This is what we have been waiting for. And so the first thing up, though, because we're going to get you ready for the day, everything that you need to know. Because remember, the Unafraid Show is about bringing you the most important things simply, quickly, and honestly. So the SEC is doing something they are groundbreaking, trailblazing, something that the bettors are going to love, and they're actually disguising it under the guise of athlete protection. And the SEC conference, they will be releasing injury reports for the first time this season. So the secrecy surrounding player availability is going to be over. So that thing that the coaches love to do because they're scared, oh, what if somebody knows that this guy is playing? We'll be at a competitive disadvantage. Well, they do it in basketball, in the NBA, they do it in baseball, they do it in the NFL. There's nothing wrong with that. It actually protects your student athletes. It protects them from you know, being tempted by the bettors. And that creates a much better situation for them. So the SEC and their injury reports, I didn't even think about this as much until I read it, that they want to be able to make sure that their athletes are not being paid or tempted to be paid for their information. Imagine how dope that is. And you don't even think about where the blind spots are until you realize, oh, wait, what would nefarious and people in dark alleys do? What would they do to gain a little bit of an edge, like in the Stanford TCU game last night? Imagine if you had known something that 8.5 point line, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's 7. Oh, I'm betting the under on that one. I'm betting that Stanford is actually going to beat the spread. All right, so there was never a margin for error in college football. But this year, we actually have the first time ever in college football history that there is margin for error in the regular season because of the 12-team playoff. Because perfection was rarely attainable in college football. And if you had anything go wrong, then you could have like last year where Florida State was deemed unworthy because their quarterback was out. Well, now they would have won the ACC. So now there's nothing to argue about. They are in the college football playoff. And in fact, they are in the top 4. So this is the thing that I actually love about the 12-team playoff is that perfection and or missing perfection because of an injury or because you guys are just figuring it out in the beginning of the season, or you have a tough game in the middle of the year, or you have a winner take all at the end of the year, like you have with Michigan and Ohio State last year. Both teams undefeated. One team goes to the playoff, one team does not. And their divisions weren't equally balanced. This is much better. And I'm hoping that this actually translates into better scheduling down the line because teams schedule out of fear. They schedule like Lincoln Riley was talking about, oh, we got a schedule for the playoff, just like Alabama did. There's no excuse for that now because you have a 12-team playoff, and in 2 years, you're going to have a 14-team playoff. So there's no excuses. Schedule better games in the non-conference, because guess what? You can actually take losses. Look at Florida State this year. They lost their game to Georgia Tech, ACC game. They still control their own destiny to make the college football playoff. They could lose to Memphis. They could lose to Florida. They could lose the rest of their non-conference games. And guess what? Win the ACC and you are in. And you are in. Because they're not going to lose their FCS game, but they could literally be 7-5, headed into the ACC championship, finish 8-5, and be a top 4 seed. So there is margin for error. So these teams need to pay particular attention to their non-conference schedules, because the better your non-conference schedules are, the more happy your fans are, and they'll know that you still have a chance to make the college football playoff. Next thing up, we have new places for old faces, and that's in the Big Ten, the ACC, Big 12, and the SEC. But it is going to be the same narrative. Think about this. It is the exact same narrative for every single team entering their new conference. And the narrative is, can they hang? Can they hang? Because everybody wants to make a statement. You got Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA headed into the Big Ten. And all the Big Ten old school people, whether it's Wisconsin, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, can they hang? Can those teams hang with the physicality of the Big Ten? Can they hang? In the ACC, Stanford, Cal, SMU, can they hang in the ACC? Can they? Because that's a big question. And then in the Big 12, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State, can they hang in the Big 12? Even though Utah is favored to win the Big 12. Everybody else is being asked that question in Colorado, Arizona, and ASU. And then in the SEC, who is not asking, can Texas and Oklahoma hang? That's the can they hang? And can they deal with this gauntlet of a schedule, even though it's only 8 conference games? They went from playing 9, but now they're playing 8, and this is more of a gauntlet. Yes, the conference is better, but it is different when you actually have to play competent teams 9 times, and 9 times in a row usually, versus 8 times. So we are going to see a lot of that and see what's going on there. And sticking with the new places, new faces for old places, and new places for old places, this has been going on with the quarterbacks. And there is a narrative. There is something going on in the world of college football right now that I want to point out that I dealt with at the University of Oregon. I want you guys to make sure that you are watching this Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning situation. Make sure you are watching the Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning situation over at Texas, because it reminds me of a quarterback situation I had at Oregon with A.J. Feely and Joey Harrington. Now, Quinn Ewers has been the starter there for the last 2 years. He is a projected NFL draft pick. Depending on how he plays, he could be a first-round draft pick. But there are people in that building in Texas that believe that Arch Manning is the future. And not only is he the future, that he is the present. Yes, there are people who believe that. So what that means is that Texas's early schedule, including that Michigan game coming up, that if this offense does not perform and move in a way that Sark deems, appropriate, watch out for Arch Manning playing, because he's going to play in at least 2 of those games and get an opportunity. And if he shines and Quinn Ewers just looks okay, I'm not even talking about bad Quinn Ewers. I'm not even talking about them losing, because we've seen this happen. We saw it happen with Trevor Lawrence over at Clemson. We saw it happen with Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler over at Oklahoma recently. So there is precedent for this. And Spencer Rattler was a NFL draft pick just this year. And like I was saying, this happened when I was at Oregon with A.J. Feely and Joey Harrington. A.J. Feely was our starter my freshman year. A.J. gets hurt. Joey comes in. A.J. never plays again. And then guess what happened to A.J. Feely on draft day? Boom, drafted. Still, mid-round draft pick. It's happened many, many times. So this is not unprecedented territory, even though people will tell you, oh, it's Quinn Ewers alone. Listen, this room and what's going on there is a lot tighter than people want to lead on. So that is worth monitoring. And it's very similar to the situation that Tom Brady had at Michigan with Drew Henson. But what actually happens in college does not mean and does not dictate what will happen in the pros. Look at Sean Clifford over at Penn State. He actually chased Will Levis out of Penn State. And where is Penn State? Well, where is Will Levis and Sean Clifford? One guy just got cut the other day, and the other guy's starting for the Tennessee Titans. So there's plenty of room, and just because the quarterback competition doesn't work out for you, doesn't mean that you're in a bad spot. Look at Joe Burrow in LSU. Same thing. And you have to have quarterback depth. You have to. And the transfer portal has actually made it harder to have quarterback depth because players typically believe if you bring a quarterback in, that he's going to be your starting quarterback. And the ACC is seeing this more than any other conference because ACC has 17 teams. And out of those 17 teams, 16 teams brought either 19 or 20 quarterbacks to media day. Yes, that's more starting quarterbacks than can actually start. You had SMU brought 2 quarterbacks. They played 2 quarterbacks in their first game, but I'm pretty sure that Stone showed that he's their guy right now because they played both. Nate Yarnell went there from Pittsburgh, but Eli Holstein is starting. Virginia brought Tony Muskett, and they're starting Anthony Colandrea. That's who they're starting. North Carolina brought 2 quarterbacks, and now Max Johnson is hurt. Cal brought 2 quarterbacks. Duke brought 2, and clearly Malik Murphy started the whole game last night. So this quarterback depth is going to be tough because there are so many guys that because there's only one quarterback who plays. It's not like a running back or wide receiver or linebacker or D lineman where there's going to be rotations. No, there's one quarterback. So that's why guys get up into the portal when they think that they will not get an opportunity. Think about that. And think about what has happened at Tulane and at Boise State. Think about the giant balls it took for those head coaches to take 5-star transfers in Malachi Nelson from USC and Ty Thompson from Oregon, and then not just hand them the keys and say, look, you're my day one starter. No, they had a legitimate competition, and neither one of them won it. Think about that. Neither one of those guys. They left Oregon and they left USC. 5-star recruits go to Tulane and Boise State and don't win the job. Now, will they play at some point in time this year? Maybe. But that foregone conclusion thing, it's not like that. It is not like that at all. And I wanted to go back to the SEC injury reports for just a second, because I wanted to give you a little bit more context about it that I actually missed earlier in the video. Because under that new policy, the SEC schools will be required to provide availability reports 3 days before each conference football game, and then daily updates after that, including one final update 90 minutes prior to kickoff. And the options are where when I was playing in the NFL, it was, like healthy, none. Then there was probable, questionable, and doubtful, and out. Well, now in the NFL, it's really, that he's in, available, questionable, or out. That's it. But in the SEC, it's going to be available, probable, questionable, doubtful, or out. And then on the final report, players will be designated as available, game time decision, or out to provide additional clarity. So watch for that game time decision thing because you're going to have coaches playing around with that one. Now I want to go back to what happened this weekend because we had Colorado versus North Dakota State. And I had a bunch of takeaways from that. First thing, Travis Hunter is an absolute cheat code. An absolute cheat code. And there's been this debate because he plays both ways. He played 127 out of 129 snaps for Colorado, which I don't believe is sustainable for the entire season. But there are people, oh, which one is he going to play in the NFL? He can't do both. Really? Are you sure? Because impossible is only impossible until it's not. Deion Sanders played both ways a little bit. So did Champ Bailey. Oh, see, look, if they couldn't do it, yeah, but he's the upgraded 2.0 version. And sometimes you run across somebody who's just that damn special. Is he going to be able to play both full time? No, no. But which should he play is the question. Because this dude looks like an potential all-pro at wideout and at DB. And I'm going to tell you this, go play wideout, son. Go play wideout. Go do it. Because the money is there. The money is different. The money is different. The top 5 wide receivers right now averaging $31 million a year. Top 5 DBs right now averaging $20 million a year. Just saying. One thing ain't like the other, fam. But go do what makes you happy. But maybe he's the Shohei Ohtani. Think about that. What if he's the Shohei Ohtani? That he's playing both at such a high level that $31 million for wide receiver, that $20 million for DB, boom, that's actually like $45 million for one player because he doing dual jobs like Shohei making 70. I would love that. I would love that because I'd be super happy for the kid and he would be must see TV. We also saw that Shedeur Sanders. I told y'all, I've been telling everybody who was trying to scream at me last year, oh, he's a check down merchant. He's this, he's that. No, Shedeur is the truth, fam. He is the number 1 overall quarterback, and it ain't even close. But I will tell you that this Colorado team, because people were trying to tell me, oh, they look better this year. No, they don't. No, they don't. And this is no disparagement to North Dakota State at all. None. Because my son goes to an FCS school. I know how good FCS football is. However, Colorado, who people are betting to not only win the Big Ten, but to win the national championship, which is an outrageous bet, and to make the college football playoff, they're betting that. That's outrageous. They are not supposed to play a close game with North Dakota State because the amount of players that are supposedly going to the NFL off of Colorado's team and how good they're supposed to be, this shouldn't even be close. But the issue is Colorado's defensive line and linebacking crew may be a tad bit better, at stopping the run, but it's still North Dakota State, where they have a little bit undersized linemen. They don't have as many going to the NFL as they do at other schools that they're going to play. So I don't believe that there's anything different in terms of what their record is going to be. But this Nebraska game this week will give them a big test because, well, Nebraska game next week in week 2. But Deion Sanders can't figure out why people don't like him. Listen, I'm rooting for the dude to succeed, but I also get it as well. So is what it is. But now it's time for me to give you my bets for this weekend. Because each and every week I am giving you my 5 picks that I feel most strongly about. And then one that I wouldn't even bet with your money, fam. So let's get into it. All right, first up, I'm taking Boston College plus 15.5 against Florida State. And no, this isn't an overreaction to the Seminoles losing to Georgia Tech and Ireland. In fact, the ACC is still up for grabs. Florida State still has a good shot to win it. But I'm looking at last year and the things that are different. So Florida State was not very physical in that Georgia Tech game. So they're going to come out and try to be more physical. But last year, Boston College's starting quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, had his best game against Florida State, passing for over 300 yards, and he rushed for almost 100 more in their 31-29 loss. And this Florida State team don't look as good as last year. And then now Boston College is coached by Bill O'Brien. And he's had several months to prepare for this game. So I like this. I think that this is a bad spot for Florida State. They should still win this football game if they got back and went to the drawing board, but 15 and a half points is far too many in this game. All right, next up, I got Arizona State covering the 6.5 against Wyoming. So Arizona State minus 6.5 against Wyoming. Because Wyoming is a tough team and they make it ugly on everybody. And Arizona State, yes, they have questions at quarterback. They decided to go with Sam Levitt. But Arizona State is very, very, they're like old and young because they're starting a bunch of 23-year-olds, putting them out on the field against Wyoming, who has a non-mobile quarterback, and their lack of talent at the receiving positions is not going to help. Plus, their starting running back, Harrison Way Lee, is out with an injury. So that's going to hurt. And it is going to be hot as fish grease when that game kicks off at 7 p.m. And there's a big difference in the temperature in Wyoming and the temperature in Arizona. I was just in Utah a couple days ago, and I was like, yo, this is chilly out here. It was chilly in the morning when I was leaving. It was in the 60s. I was like, it's a little cold. A little cold. Yeah, it's a nice 80-degree day. That's a whole different than a 100-degree night. Because that just gets in you. Like, that's actually one of the worst things about Las Vegas and Arizona is the nighttime because the heat is so unrelenting. It just makes you mad. So that's my pick there. All right, my next pickup for the week, my third pickup for the week is Virginia Tech minus 12.5 against Vanderbilt. Now, I got a video that just came out on Unafraid Show, a short about Virginia Tech quarterback Kyron Drones, because he actually might be the next Jaden Daniels. But his 2023 season was actually identical to Jaden Daniels' 22 campaign over at LSU. 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, over 800 yards rushing. So, excuse me. So an explosion like we saw out of Jaden Daniels is definitely possible for Kyron Drones. But now this Vanderbilt team that they're going to be playing against, hybrid option, it might keep it close for a while, but this Commodores team lost all 9 of its games against Power 5 schools last year by more than this spread. So the Hokies are the smart bet here. And fourth up, I'm picking Notre Dame. Everybody knows I'm picking Notre Dame to go to the national championship against Oregon in my bracket, the way the bracket shakes out. So the fact that they have Texas A&M favorite in Kyle Field, I do not care. Texas A&M -3, Notre Dame +3. This is easy money. This is the lock of the week. Notre Dame +3 at Texas A&M. And I know that this is going to be a strange reunion for the quarterback, Riley Leonard, and Texas A&M coach Mike Elko, because they were both at Duke last year. And Riley Leonard gave Mike Elko's defenses great credit because he said they're great at not great, elite at disguising their intent pre-snap. But he also said he's confident that when he figures it out, the floodgates are going to open. So Notre Dame +3, lock of the week. And my last pick of this week, it fell short last night, man. Fell short. TCU -8.5 at Stanford. Lord have mercy. Stanford, why would you kick a field goal at the end of the game? A cheap field goal. Oh, man, I had them by 10 points, and then TCU went to prevent defense, and then Stanford with their big leg kicker kicks a, long field goal at the end of the game. Come on, man. That was mad upsetting. Mad upsetting. But it lets me know that I'm dialed in. That I'm dialed in on these picks. Because last year did over 70% on the picks. And yeah, I am dialed in. Ooh, that loss actually felt like a win to me. Oh, it felt like a win because I was like, okay, we dialed in. Because TCU actually messed up a touchdown opportunity right before halftime. They missed a field goal. I was like, I am dialed in. Ooh, big money for everybody this year. And the game that I would not touch with your money is Georgia Tech, Georgia State this weekend. Because Georgia Tech is favored by 21.5 points. And the sharp bettor would tell you that a team coming off a top 10 win overseas is going to have a little bit of a hangover. and that anybody taking this spread is just being reactive. But Georgia State collapsed last year. They started 6-1, and their head coach Sean Elliott resigned this year during spring ball. So this team could actually rally behind their new coach Dale McGee and Georgia Tech transfer Zach Gibson at quarterback. Or this could be a giant mess that looks more like a team that gave up at least 42 points in 4 consecutive weeks last November. So stay away from that game because it is way too many unknowns. Do not bet it. All right, now I want to get on to the Heisman Trophy for a minute because this is obviously a topic of discussion every single year. And we're going to get a chance to see the guys who may be on that stage today in games that matter. We get to see Carson Beck and Cade Klubnik in Georgia. Clemson visits Georgia in a neutral site game, which we'll get into in a minute. You got Drew Aller over at Penn State visiting West Virginia. Cam Ward at Miami. He's got a tough game against Florida. And Graham Mertz. Now, I'm not putting Graham Mertz in that category, but, he's worth mentioning because he is the starting quarterback at Florida. They play in the SEC, and you never know. And you got Garrett Nussmeier and Miller Moss taking it on tomorrow on Sunday. So we're excited about that. And you got Riley Leonard over at Notre Dame. And the reason why I mention these guys exclusively, I didn't mention Dylan Gabriel, didn't mention Will Howard, didn't mention some of the other guys because they don't have games this week that are going to be featured and put on their Heisman resume. Their stats are going to get put on the Heisman resume, but this game itself is not going to be put on the Heisman resume aside from some ridiculous play that we got to, pay attention to on and on again. But now it is time for my picks of the week of the most important games that we are going to love to see. So we got Clemson versus Georgia, neutral site game, Cade Klubnik, Carson Beck, and the Georgia Bulldogs. So I pulled it up last night. I want to make sure that the number is still the same right now. Clemson, Georgia. Ooh, that number has fallen down from 13.5 all the way down to 11. Georgia minus 11. And so people have been betting this. And give me Georgia minus 11. I'm taking this and I am running with it because I do not trust Cade Klubnik yet. And I'm sorry, good, I got a kid that's a quarterback. It ain't fun to say that people aren't going to have success. Georgia's a different beast, particularly in game 1. And Carson Beck should start faster than he did last year. And this is not going to look like it did when DJ Uiagalelei was the quarterback at Clemson. What was it, 10-3, 7-3 in that game? No. But this game, I got to tell you, is so big for Dabo Swinney. So big. Because if they get their doors knocked off, now the legitimacy of people talking about him is going to carry some weight. Get in the transfer portal, Dabo. You don't have to take 42 transfers or newcomers like they did over at Colorado. No. You just got to get a couple here and there, 2, 3 a year. That's it. But I do love the fact that he wants his coaches to stand on business in recruiting and make sure that they do their due diligence and coach guys up. That part I love. But in the end of the day, you are tasked with winning football games. All right, the next game up, we got Penn State versus West Virginia. Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier, and that number is still the same at 7.5. 7.5. And this to me feels like a trap game for Penn State. Trap game all the way. So I'm not giving you the picks. I'm giving you the odds. But I already gave you my betting favorites. But in this game, I am taking West Virginia to upset Penn State. Yep, but not on the line. So this does not go against my record. These are just the picks. I got Georgia winning, West Virginia winning. The next game up, Miami versus Florida. Cam Ward versus Graham Mertz. Miami's favored by 2.5 points. Everybody is counting Florida out because Miami got, Cam Ward, the Damian Martinez, running back from Oregon State. Oh, and little old Florida, little old, they're not going to be able to cut it. They're not going to be able to hang against Mario Cristobal's team. Mario Cristobal plays close games. And this is a game that Florida is going to steal. Watch it. Give me Florida in the huge upset in this game. All right, next game up. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. I told y'all already. I gave y'all the odds, but this is on my pick today too. Notre Dame absolutely beats Texas A&M. And I'm not talking about an escape out of Kyle Field. I'm talking about a bona fide book it. Damn, that team is good kind of win. That's the type of win you're going to see out of Notre Dame today. Last game up, and that game is tomorrow, USC versus LSU in Las Vegas. Miller Moss, Garrett Nussmeier. LSU is favored by 4 points. Now, the biggest question is, which one of these garbage defenses from last year is going to be better? Which one of them is going to put a competent defense on the field? Is it going to be Lincoln Riley, who's never done it? Or is it going to be Brian Kelly, who's done it, just hasn't done it at LSU? And both of them have done a great job improving their defensive staffs. LSU improved their defensive staff, new defensive coordinator, winner, the history of winning. USC went and got Matt Entz, North Dakota State head coach, to be their linebacker coach. Eric Henderson from the Rams, who Aaron Donald gives credit to for being an excellent D-line coach. They went and got DeAnton Land from across the street at UCLA, sought after defensive coordinator to be their defensive coordinator. So, but at the end of the day, you have to change the physicality in practice, which we cannot judge yet. So we are going to see the more physical team is going to win. But I believe that this is going to come down to some quarterback play. Now, Miller Moss is the least mobile quarterback that Lincoln Riley has ever had. He's not Kyler Murray. He's not Baker Mayfield. He's not Jalen Hurts. And he's not Caleb Williams. So this is going to test Lincoln Riley's coaching with the quarterback who can run a little bit, but you don't really want to do that. And Garrett Nussmeier over at LSU. So this is going to be a coaching game. Who got the defense right? LSU -4. And I'm taking LSU to win. I am. So, you guys, that's the Unafraid Show. College football preview, week 1. We will be back tomorrow. Back tomorrow to talk about all of these games after USC LSU. So, you guys, book it, keep it, stay around, tell a friend about it, and enjoy the games today.